Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. Latest Ripple research covers trust, smart economics, and everything in between. All sorts of neat stuff in this particular article I'm going to be running through with you today. I've also got a couple tweets from the XRP community, including new information about volume on XRapid enabled exchange Bitso, now known as on-demand liquidity, of course. You may think, well, we were just talking about that the other day, about new all-time high volume on Bitso. Yes, and it was smashed again. So you got to see this chart ramp up, man. I look forward to sharing the graphic with you. And then I'll wrap up the video with something that conceptually I just find interesting, unrelated to XRP, which is why I save it for the end. It's from CoinDesk. Why Bitcoin's next halving may not pump the price like last time. And there have only been two halvings in the history of Bitcoin. Now, of course, I did say it doesn't have anything to do with XRP. Indirectly, because the entire, we're talking about the price action of Bitcoin, and XRP indeed is correlated to Bitcoin, as is every other cryptocurrency in the asset class. But before we get going any further here, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you're a fan of Ripple and XRP, treat yourself, girl, subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. You might not regret it. So anyway, Ripple based the entire report on the flywheel effect, a phenomenon that adheres to the principle that the effect of a technology is what propels it towards mainstream adoption. The cryptocurrency market has been rife with several developments from different cryptocurrency organizations, and Ripple, I hate that they word it like this, they're the parent company of the world's third largest cryptocurrency, XRP, which has not been left far behind. No, Ripple is not the parent company of a decentralized cryptocurrency. That makes no damn sense. Check your language. The organization, known for its keen focus on the remittance market, has made waves in the industry with the release of its latest Payments in Blockchain report that spoke about the various factors for a blockchain technology to take flight rapidly. Ripple based the entire report on the flywheel effect, a phenomenon that adhered to the principle that the impact of technology is what propels it towards mainstream adoption. The company further elucidated on two critical elements for solidifying blockchain technology as a mainstay: trust and attractive economics. Indeed. So here's a quote now. The mainstream adoption of blockchain is further dependent on building trust among both end customers and global payment service providers. It takes time to develop and maintain confidence across these critical paths, like those in payments. Now, on this point, it's obviously quite true, the statement that trust matters. But what's so cool about this, the way that money moves around the world, specifically with the blend of RippleNet's technology, the payments portion formerly known as XCurrent, and now on-demand liquidity, which is the settlement portion, the amount of trust required to complete those transactions is substantially reduced. Because if you look at how the correspondent banking system works, it's of course just a chain of bilateral banking relationships. That's all cut out. All you have to trust now, if you want to move money around the world in that way, is that cryptography works. Coolest thing. Anyway, Brad Garlinghouse, the chief executive officer of Ripple, has stated multiple times over the course of the past couple of years that security is of paramount importance to the company. That value was also represented in Ripple's latest report, which talked about how trust is built upon a foundation of security with three main pillars, which are reliability, transparency, and positive customer experience. And here's another quote. For survey respondents, security ranks first in terms of blockchain's operational benefits, slightly ahead of transparency. Security includes fraud mitigation, hacking prevention, and robust compliance. In particular, early adopters and digital-first payment service providers value security more than others, including late adopters and providers with less than 25% of their business being digital, which makes sense to me, right? Another critical factor for the success of blockchain technology was obviously its revenue generation capabilities. Although blockchain technology is relatively new, Ripple has been very clear-cut in stating that as long as the economics feasible, the industry will continue to be impaired. Thankfully, the company reported the 41% of all respondents saw blockchain as a gateway for providing greater market access, with the added bonus of expanding to uncharted geographic locations, of course. And it'll continue to build out, of course, as corridors are developed. But all the good things in time. All right, next, here's a tweet from Mr. BXRP. And I actually shared this Oh wait, did I? Maybe I didn't share this tweet. Yeah, I take it back. By Ripple allowing us to rub shoulders with their existing customers. And no, I think I did. I think I shared this. Did I not? I'm sorry. I'm just curious now. Yeah, I did. I shared this one. That one's from yesterday. Okay, so check this out. But I want to share. I have to read this because there's a response I want to share with you. So Mr. BXRP, who went to Ripple's Swell in Singapore, writes, by Ripple allowing us to rub shoulders with their existing customers and prospects that want to be customers, gave us a very clear perspective of the future. I am traveling home with a digital asset investor now, and you can expect him to explain the enormity of this on his channel. And Life 5.8 responded to Mr. B and tagged me. So he wrote, a shout out to Kevin Cage, Moon Lambo, and Ham Eggs in Sam for bringing us more information stateside than we got from the influencers who attended. Great coverage. I hope that next year we can send a different group who may ask the right questions instead of autographs. Well, first of all, thank you very much for the compliment. I appreciate the sentiment, and I certainly did my best to cover what I could at Swell. And there was a lot of information, and I feel like I put out a lot. I put out everything I could that I could find. Within reason, there's so much news that came out over those couple days in particular that it was feeling like too much. But beyond that, okay, so as far as the idea of the people that attended not putting content out, I would just say this. I think that they were pretty busy while they were there, and there were some live streams with Brad Kimes and Digital Asset Investor, but I think a lot of it more so is just going to be put out afterwards. For example, case in point, and I'm going to cover this in another video, Leonidas, who is an XRP community member who was invited by Ripple to Swell, he just put out a rather lengthy article about, and it's just a roundup of what happened at Swell and his experiences there. So I am actually at some point going to be covering that one. But I'm willing to cut the people that attended some slack, just me personally, because they were busy and just you got to kind of live the experience while you're there. So I can kind of understand that. But nonetheless, I want to give you a shout out, Live 5.8. I appreciate you tagging me, and thank you very much for the compliment. I do appreciate it. All right, next year, this is from Crypto Joe. Bitso Volume, that's the on-demand liquidity-enabled exchange Ripple partner, Bitso. Bitso Volume crossed 5 million XRP in the last 24 hours. And this is from just several hours or so ago that this was put out. So it's brand new stuff. And you can see here you go. Look at this beautiful chart. And you can see it was roughly mid-September when you really started to see this ramp up. And, it's MoneyGram. I wonder, and see, given that it continues to increase, there was a report within the last, when was that? It was like a week ago at this point? I can't remember. Where we first found out that only about 10% of MoneyGram's flow from U.S. to Mexico, that corridor, only about 10% of it was going through on-demand liquidity utilizing XRP, but they're ramping it up. So I'm guessing that the reason this keeps going up is I'm just presuming, I think it's a reasonable assumption that MoneyGram, they're just like, they're not jumping in all at once, but they're slowly ramping it up. And who knows? I mean, you would think eventually pretty much 100% of that volume should be going through Bitso then, right? So cool stuff. Utility matters and will win the day. I just want to say it again. All right, last piece in this video from CoinDesk. Why Bitcoin's next halving may not pump the price like last time. And I won't pretend to know what's going to happen, and I don't make price predictions, but I've talked about this conceptually on the channel over the last several months in particular as it's been popping up in articles. And I think about it, and I find the concept fascinating because if you look at the last two halvings, yes, there was a jump up in price. But it wasn't actually day one of the halving. I'm just going from memory now, but I don't think it was literally day one, but it happened. And I just started to wonder at some point, is a certain amount of this going to be baked into the price? Probably the answer is yes. I just don't know to what degree. Anyway, so check this out. Whether you call it the halving or the halvening, one of the few things we can be sure of in crypto is that the conversation around Bitcoin's upcoming reduction in mining reward will intensify over the next 6 months. Why? Because previous halvings have triggered bull runs. And who doesn't like a bull run? Many are convinced that the next halving will have the same market effect, and it's not just a belief that history repeats itself. Models have emerged to support this theory. But if the bull run is expected, why hasn't it already happened? Why isn't the halving already priced in? Because the halving is much more than an event. It's also a narrative, and an uncertain one at that. And so I don't want to cover this whole thing, but I wanted to jump down. There was a little subheading talking about... I think I went too far. Sorry, one sec here. Here we go. Reasons for skepticism. Okay. First, some argue that halving is already priced in. The move from $3,300 to $12,000 earlier this year, that was it. The market is relatively efficient in terms of information distribution, the argument goes. So smart investors would obviously have incorporated the supply adjustment into their models and taken positions accordingly. And this is something I've talked about on the channel in the past. And to me, that makes sense. I'm willing to bet that some are. Now, I'm not claiming that entire jump was why. I'm not stating that. I'm just saying that it makes sense to me that some savvy investors, if you're long Bitcoin, would indeed do that. I just don't know how many of them would do that. Anyway, second, models tend to fit until they don't. The Bitcoin ecosystem today is arguably very different from previous halvings. 4 years ago, crypto derivatives markets were in their infancy, institutional involvement was slim, and valuation frameworks were practically non-existent. It's not unreasonable for investors to believe that this time it's different. Some industry insiders have hinted that the halving could be negative if it reduces miners' profitability and forces many of the smaller ones out of the market. True, this could be offset by a price increase, but if that turns out to not be proportional, increased network centralization could trigger concerns about security. Also, in traditional markets, price is rarely a function of supply. It's more influenced by demand, which the S2F model does not take into account. In the absence of an established and widespread fundamental use case for now, demand in crypto markets is narrative-driven. And it's funny, that's all fair enough analysis, I think. It's funny that they talk about widespread fundamental use case, absence of an established and widespread fundamental use case. Not with XRP. There's a very clear use case for XRP as a bridge currency, as it pertains to moving money around the world. And of course, then there's Coil and others building on top of the XRP ledger as well for different use cases. But it's just funny that we're 10 years into this and there are multiple use cases for XRP and 0 for Bitcoin. Unless you want to say that store of value, but I just don't buy that whole argument. I'm not sold on the concept that Bitcoin will have staying power if its only use case is as a store of value. Because then why Bitcoin, not something else? It just doesn't make any sense to me, really. So I'm skeptical of that. That's the way I like to phrase that. But that's it for this video. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything, because of anything that I say or write, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!